The air on Titan always felt thick, even inside the colony domes where oxygen flowed steady and warm. You could taste the metallic edge of methane in your throat, a reminder that beyond the transparent walls, the planet would kill you in seconds. Still, for Elijah Pike, the docks were home, a place where everything made sense when something was broken. Machines followed rules. People, not so much. That morning, his boots tracked streaks of amber frost across the floor as he jogged toward Port Kraken's cargo yard, checking his wrist slate for the shift timer. 8 hours, 59 minutes, and 12 seconds. He could make it. He just needed to keep moving. Then he saw her. At first glance, she looked like any off-world traveler. Slim build wrapped in a composite cloak against the cold, posture too careful for someone born in Titan's light gravity. Her breathing was wrong. The portable rebreather at her chest hissed in sputters instead of rhythm. Elijah's instincts clicked faster than reason. He skidded to her side, crouching low as she fought to stay upright. When her hood slipped, bioluminescent veins shimmered faintly beneath pale, translucent skin. The Sari, he realized, one of the diplomatic species. "Hold still," he said, voice low but steady. "You've got a seal fault." Her response came in accented standard, elegant but tight with pain. "I am fine. Please, don't." "Fine people don't wheeze methane," he said, pulling the emergency heater tape from his belt. He tore a strip with his teeth, resealed the cracked edge around her intake valve, and waited for the readout to steady. She stared at him wide-eyed as the green indicator returned. Then her hand, 4 fingers and a thumb joint that moved with almost mechanical precision, grabbed his wrist as another contraction folded her double. Elijah steadied her. "Okay," he murmured. "We're going to sit, and you're going to breathe slow. Med lift's 2 minutes out." "You'll be late," she said, voice trembling. "Story of my life." He pressed his jacket over her shoulders, then jogged toward the main gate. 9 hours, 13 minutes, and 7 seconds glared red on the scanner as he passed through. The guard's face didn't soften. 3 strikes, Pike. You're out." Elijah didn't argue. Words wouldn't help. The dock cafeteria smelled of oil, reheated stew, and ozone from bad wiring. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as workers clustered around long steel tables, their chatter dimming when Elijah walked in. Everyone knew what a summons meant. At the far end, under a hanging monitor looping safety ads, the tribunal waited. Krell, his shift manager with a permanent sneer, an HR kiosk projecting a synthetic voice, and Rissa, the union rep, tablet already glowing. Krell gestured to the chair. "Sit." Elijah obeyed. The HR bot's lens irised open, recording. Employee Elijah Pike. Tardiness infraction number 3 within operational quarter. Present evidence. He rubbed a hand over his jaw. Had to stop on the causeway. Someone's rebreather failed in the methane. Would have died before help came. Krell leaned back. "Not your jurisdiction. Not your shift. Still a person," Elijah said evenly. Rissa glanced up from her screen. "Any proof of emergency?" Elijah shook his head. Didn't think to take a photo while she was suffocating. A few workers snorted softly, sympathy hidden under nervous laughter. Krell ignored them. "You're a maintenance tech, Pike, not a hero. We need people who follow schedules, not martyrs who play nurse on company time." That stung. Not the insult, but the small truth buried in it. Elijah had always lived by timetables, maintenance logs, checklists that never ended. One missed minute could ripple into disaster. He'd missed his wife's last call that way years ago. She'd been on the shuttle downwell. He'd stayed late to double-check a cargo lock that jammed. The next morning, her name sat on the fatal manifest list. Duty first, always. He swallowed hard. "I rerouted a forklift line last night to stop a door jam in Bay 12, he said. "Saved your crew 3 hours of downtime." Krell waved a dismissive hand. "And logged none of it, which means it doesn't exist." The HR bot chimed. "Termination recommended. Hazard pay revoked." The silence after the verdict stretched thin as wire. Rissa closed her tablet slowly. "You sure about this, Krell? Man's saved more hardware than your whole maintenance pool." Krell smirked. You want to keep him? Pay his wages out of your own pocket. Elijah stood. Don't bother. He unclipped his badge and set it on the table. The metallic clink echoed down the line. Outside, the colony's inner corridor was quieter. Low hum of pumps, the whisper of distant compressors. Mara waited by the vending unit, school satchel slung across one shoulder, hair tied back with a piece of yellow wire insulation he'd given her. You okay, Dad? She asked. Sure. He forced a smile. Union says I'm overqualified for employment. Her eyes narrowed. She was too sharp for 12. That means you got fired again. Temporarily between opportunities. He corrected, deadpan. The corner of her mouth twitched. Humor kept the air from collapsing. They walked together toward the tram station. He bought her a cup of hot cocoa from the dispenser. Thin, synthetic, but it made her smile anyway. On the bench, he unfolded a crumpled packing slip and started penciling numbers. Oxygen credits first, he murmured. Then food rations. I can pick up temp work at Hydro too, maybe some filter replacements. We'll manage. Mara sipped her cocoa. You always say that. And we always do. He checked the colony job board on his slate. A dozen postings blinked red, filled. Another 4 demanded current doc credentials. None had them. He added a reminder to clean the home filters manually and set an alert to check the oxygen reserve before lights out. Organization was his armor. Mara leaned against him. Mom would have told them off. Mom also never read company policy. She would have anyway. He smiled at that. She was right. By evening, the rain had returned, amber and endless, tapping against the dome like a heartbeat. Elijah sat by the apartment's single window, patching a heater coil for a neighbor in exchange for dinner credits. The repair light flickered across his face as he worked, hands steady even as exhaustion gnawed at him. The door beeped, a courier drone. It dropped a sealed data slip on the table. The sender field read unknown. He tapped it open. You saved me this morning. I owe you employment. And more. Doc 7 after rain. S. Elijah frowned. No attachments, no credentials, just the initial. Doc 7 belonged to the upper sector, where executives docked their shuttles. It wasn't a place for mechanics. He closed the message, reopened it, read it again. S, he said aloud. Could it be a prank? A setup? He thought of the woman's trembling hands, the glow under her skin, the way she'd said you'll be late like an apology. He exhaled slowly. Saren, he whispered, testing the sound of the name he didn't yet know. The next day, a news ticker rolled across every colony screen. Apex Minerals proposes new Titan grid contract. Independent audit to determine efficiency standards. Council hearing set for Friday. That was in 3 days. The same Apex that owned his old dock lease. The same people Krell answered to. He folded his arms, gaze tracing the rain outside. Grid contract, he muttered. Of course. He'd heard whispers. Apex planning to privatize oxygen output, tying breathable air to performance metrics. Fail your quota, lose your rations. It sounded impossible. It also sounded like Apex. Mara emerged from her room, rubbing her eyes. Dad, are we okay? Always, he said, then paused. But I might have a meeting later. With who? He hesitated, watching condensation bead on the window. Not sure yet, but she might own the place. That earned him a confused laugh. He smiled, ruffling her hair. Finish your cocoa. I'll be back before curfew. As the rain slackened to mist, he checked his tools, old habit. Heater tape, wrench, portable gauge. He wasn't sure why he packed them. Something in the message felt unfinished, like a door half open. When he stepped into the tram bound for Dock 7, the cabin lights flickered, casting his reflection on the glass. Tired eyes, oil stains, a man who fixed things even when he couldn't fix his own luck. The tram slid silently through tunnels lined with frost, past cargo yards he once managed, toward the upper platforms where power lived. He didn't know that the woman waiting beyond those doors had already rewritten his future, or that by morning, His name would be whispered across Port Kraken for something other than being late. All he knew was that she'd signed her message S, and on Titan no one used initials unless they mattered. Outside, the rain turned from gold to rust, hissing softly as it met the glass, like the world itself holding its breath. Dock 7 didn't belong to people like Elijah Pike. It was the kind of place where the air felt expensive, filtered twice, perfumed faintly with citrus compounds to remind investors of Earth comfort. The lighting was soft, white gold, none of the cold blue glare the lower docks used. Even the floor plating had polish instead of rust. He'd scrubbed floors like these once, years ago, during a contract renewal tour. He remembered thinking they were slippery enough to kill a man who walked too confidently. He checked his slate again. The message blinked. Dock 7. After rain. It was after rain. Always was, here. The colony never really dried. He almost turned back twice before a shadow moved across the platform. Tall, deliberate. She approached with the quiet balance of someone who didn't need to hurry. The same woman he'd saved on the causeway, only now she was flanked by 2 attendants and dressed in deep charcoal armorcloth that gleamed faintly where light touched its seams. No hood this time. The bioluminescent filigree along her jawline pulsed with slow rhythm, each thread catching and fading like breathing. "Elijah Pike," she said, voice smooth but carrying that unmistakable edge of command. "You fix things." He blinked, half expecting a guard to tell him to leave. "When I'm not being fired, yes, ma'am." The faintest smile tugged her mouth. "Then I may have something in need of repair." She gestured for him to follow. They passed through a pressure door into the dock's observation chamber, a long, transparent corridor that overlooked Titan's methane sea. He caught the scent of ozone, faint but real. The systems were running hot. "This deck's supposed to be sealed off after hours," Elijah said carefully. "It belongs to me," she answered, and when she said it, there was no arrogance, only fact. He frowned. "You mean your management?" She looked at him fully then, crest faintly brightening with each pulse of light. "I mean, I am the management, Mr. Pike. Port Kraken Holdings is one of 12 companies within a Trust 1 control. I operate it under alias to evaluate efficiency." For a long second, he just stared. "You own the company that fired me?" "Yes." "Well," he said finally, "this'll be a short meeting." The attendants exchanged glances, uncertain whether to intervene. She raised a hand, dismissing them. "Leave us." When the door sealed behind them, she turned back. "I did not know who you were until the dock logs flagged your termination record. The security feeds confirmed your interference." "Helping a stranger breathe?" he said. "Interfering," she repeated, wry. "You shouldn't have been punished for that." He shrugged. "Happens all the time. Policy's policy. Policies are written by people. Flawed ones. Guess that's why you hide behind shell companies," he said, then caught himself. "Sorry. That was uncalled for." Her eyes, silver and steady, didn't flicker. "No, it was honest. I prefer that." They stood in silence for a beat, the methane sea flickering below. Pale sunlight diffused through Titan's orange haze. "You're not security," she said at last. "Yet you knew exactly how to reseal my rebreather." "How?" He hesitated. "Used to manage hazardous systems before they cut the department. Spent a year in pressure safety. You learn to read the hiss of a leak like a language." Her expression softened. "Then perhaps you can explain this." She slid a data slate across the railing. It displayed a maintenance log, hundreds of small discrepancies. Dock 9 reports sensor fluctuations. Every test says there's no breach, yet pressure loss accumulates by 0.2% hourly. Elijah scanned the graphs. "That's not pressure loss," he said after a moment. "That's sensor noise. See here? The fluctuations are too regular. Someone overtuned the calibration curves." "You're certain?" He nodded. "If you shut down Dock 9 now, you'll lose a week of productivity for nothing. All you need is a manual gauge check. I can show you in 10 minutes. "Do it." The order was clean, crisp, the way only someone accustomed to being obeyed could speak. He grabbed a toolkit from the maintenance locker and knelt beside the hatch interface. She crouched beside him despite the fine clothes, watching with an engineer's attention. "Here," he said, unscrewing a panel. "You hear that hum? That's stable. The alarm says unstable because the signal's bouncing off residual current from the autoscrubbers." He shorted the auxiliary circuit, then tapped the gauge. The readout steadied instantly. No leak, just bad math. Saren exhaled softly, and for the first time, he saw relief flicker across her face. "You just saved me a week of political sabotage." He stood, wiping his hands. "No charge. I'm unemployed." "Then consider yourself temporarily employed," she said. "I want you to review every system Apex installed during the last contract period." He raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "I never waste seriousness on small things." Her crest dimmed slightly as she leaned on the railing. "I'm traveling under diplomatic exile. My House Iller, intends to recall me for what they call dereliction of lineage. They wish me to remarry into a power block." I refused. The admission came with no self-pity, just the plainness of fact. "You're pregnant," he said quietly. "Yes." She rested a hand against her abdomen. "And they believe a child unclaimed by house sanction is a political risk. I prefer to call it mine." He nodded once. "So that's why you were out alone in the rain." "I needed to inspect the cargo manifest personally. Fewer eyes that way. Risky move for someone who owns half the colony." She smiled faintly. "I've learned that power works better when no one knows it's in the room." He thought of his own daughter, of oxygen bills and ration slips, and the quiet nights he spent repairing things for neighbors. Power had never once been in his room. He respected that she didn't wield hers like a weapon. "So, what exactly do you need from me?" "I need competence," she said simply. "And I need discretion. The systems you built your life on are being sabotaged from within. Apex Minerals wants Port Kraken to fail its efficiency audit so they can absorb it into their cartel. If they succeed, oxygen will be privatized." He frowned. "That rumor's real? I don't deal in rumors." He rubbed his face. "You're asking me to fix everything they've been breaking, while pretending I'm not fired. I can make your termination vanish from the record." He shook his head. "Don't. I'll work as an outside contractor. Cleaner that way." Her expression sharpened with quiet approval. "You think like a strategist. Just a dad trying not to get evicted." A sound cut through their conversation, the rhythmic click of boots on steel. They turned. Holt Varn entered, flanked by security drones. Smile too polished to be sincere. His suit was cut from dark synth linen, the kind of fabric that made ordinary people feel out of place. "Lady Iller," he said smoothly, bowing. "I didn't realize you were entertaining. Local help." "Mr. Varn," Saren replied coolly. "We were discussing dock safety." "Of course you were." His eyes drifted to Elijah. "Pike, is it? I hear you've been dismissed. How fortunate that you found new employment before your oxygen credits expired." Elijah forced a polite smile. "Some of us work better without supervision." Holt chuckled, though there was no warmth in it. "Charming. But as I'm sure Lady Iller knows, the grid renegotiation hearing is in 2 days. Any appearance of charity or favoritism will be politically misunderstood." Saren folded her arms. "Saving lives is not charity." The lift dropped fast enough to make Elijah's stomach lurch. Warning lights strobed through the glass, staining the walls in pulses of orange and red. The system voice repeated the same monotone announcement every 5 seconds. "Pressure variance detected. Spine C lockdown imminent." He didn't need the reminder. The hiss under the floor told him exactly how bad it was. Saren gripped the rail beside him, steady despite the vibration. "How far down?" 6 levels, Elijah said. "We'll hit the secondary airlock, but if the manifold's cracked the way I think it is, that lock won't hold pressure." She nodded once, calm in a way that made him glance at her twice. He'd seen veteran engineers crumble during smaller crises, but she stood balanced, the low light glancing off the silver veins under her skin. For a moment he forgot the alarms, watching her calculate without panic. When the lift doors opened, the smell of coolant hit them first, sharp, metallic, Cold. Steam rolled through the corridor. Half a dozen workers were already there, shouting over the alarms, trying to brace the trembling bulkhead. The sound of escaping gas was a scream under everything else. Elijah's voice cut through the chaos. Everyone listen up. We've got overpressure on the B manifold. You kill the main valve. You pull secondary seals and prep a replacement. Nobody touch the coolant lines without gloves. They moved. Orders from management meant suspicion. Orders from one of their own meant survival. Saren stepped forward, scanning the control panel. Pressure readings are fluctuating at a harmonic frequency. The containment field's oscillating. Translation, he said. It's about to shake itself apart. She didn't bristle at his tone, just nodded, already tracing data streams with long, deliberate fingers. If we vent through the service line, we can bleed the pressure slowly. He crouched by the manifold, hand steady on the gauge. The crack was thin but deadly, spiderwebbing across the valve joint. Frost built along the edge, glittering under the emergency light. We don't have time to bleed. It's going to go in under a minute. Then we reinforce, she said. He looked up. You sure? She met his eyes. Yes, that was all he needed. Then get me a heater spool and a carbon strap. A worker tossed him the supplies. Elijah worked fast, wrapping the heater tape around the damaged joint, sealing it with steady, practiced precision. Saren rerouted the system flow to the auxiliary line, her voice calm and clear over the noise. Redirecting feed, 30% reduction. Now, the deck shuddered as the pressure normalized, then steadied. For a second, no one breathed. The hiss stopped. Then came the first cheer. Someone clapped. Someone else laughed, the kind of laugh that sounded like relief. Elijah leaned back against the bulkhead, catching his breath. Nice call on the auxiliary route, he said. Saren's crest glowed faintly, a soft pulse of color. You worked faster than my team of engineers. Cheaper, too, he said. She gave a short, unexpected laugh. A low sound, musical despite the rasp in her voice. The workers stared. They'd never heard that from a superior before. But the victory lasted all of 20 seconds. A new alarm flared, different tone, deeper. Secondary containment compromised. Elijah turned toward the viewport. Outside, methane fog billowed around the structure like breath. A seam glowed faintly orange where pressure heat met the outer atmosphere. Someone's tampered with the vents, Saren said. He swore softly. Deliberate. I can't prove it, she said. But yes, someone wants a visible failure. Then they'll get smoke instead of bodies. He grabbed a toolkit and motioned toward the exterior lock. You stay here. I can patch it from the maintenance ledge. She shook her head. You'll need someone to regulate internal pressure. If the outer valve pops while you're outside, you'll be frozen before you can hit the switch. You've got better odds inside, he said. Her crest dimmed to a narrow band of light. I don't play odds. He opened his mouth to argue, but her expression silenced him. She wasn't being stubborn. She was being exactly as pragmatic as he was. He handed her his spare oxygen mask. You so much as feel your chest tighten, you get back in. Understood. The airlock cycled. The world outside hit like a wall of ghostly cold. Methane haze swallowed the stars, a yellow fog stretching to infinity. Gravity was light here. Each step carried him half a meter off the deck before settling again. Saren followed with measured care, securing a tether around the rail. The cracked vent glowed faintly ahead, radiating shimmering frost. Elijah dropped to one knee and started layering thermal tape over the seam. The hum of the colony under his boots was different, quieter, heavier. He didn't look up until he heard her voice through the comm. Pressure inside is holding steady at 1.2 atmospheres. You've got 30 seconds before we lose equilibrium. Copy. He tightened the strap, sealed it with a snap of the heater spool, and kicked the manual latch. The glow faded. His visor frosted for a heartbeat before clearing again. When they re-entered the airlock, the chamber flooded with warmer air. Both stood still for a moment, silent except for the hiss of repressurization. Saren removed her mask first. You've done this before. Too many times, he said, rubbing his gloved hands together. Usually without an audience. Her expression softened. I can see why people follow you. I'm not a leader. You are. You just lead quietly. He looked away, uncomfortable with the compliment. Quiet's cheaper. The inner door opened to chaos. Workers moving equipment, safety drones hovering, and at the far end, a swarm of corporate cameras. Holt Varn had arrived. Well, Varn said, voice amplified through his wristcom. Looks like we've caught our colony's saviors on film. Convenient. Saren straightened, the lines of her face smoothing into calm authority. Is there a problem, Director? None at all, Varn said, smiling for the cameras. Merely ensuring transparency. The Council will appreciate seeing how effectively you handle your own emergencies. Elijah could see the angle instantly. Varn wanted footage of chaos, workers scrambling, systems failing, the company head out of her depth. But instead, what he'd filmed was competence. Quiet, steady teamwork. Saren met the camera lens dead on. Transparency is valuable. I trust you'll share the unedited feed. Varn's smile twitched. Naturally. Good, she said. Because I plan to show it myself at the council hearing. That shut him up. When he finally left, the deck settled into uneasy calm. The manifold hummed quietly again. Pressure restored. Workers began resetting tools and sealing panels. Elijah leaned against the wall, exhaling. That man's a walking PR hazard. Saren's lips curved faintly. He's worse than that. He's efficient. They both laughed softly, the exhaustion catching up at last. For a moment, the danger felt far away. Later, in the temporary command module, Saren poured 2 cups of recycled water from a thermal flask and handed one to him. Drink. You're shaking. I'm fine, he said, but he drank anyway. The water was metallic, warm, better than nothing. Your daughter, she said after a pause. Mara, correct? He blinked. How do you? I read the employee records. She's in the colony school near Dome 2. He nodded, cautious. She'll have seen the alerts, Saren said gently. You should call her. Later, he said. If she hears my voice right now, she'll know I was down here. Saren tilted her head. You fear her worry more than your own death. He smiled without humor. She's 12. She already worries too much. The silence between them shifted, softer now. He saw in her the same exhaustion, the discipline that came from carrying too much for too long. You said your house wants you back, he said. What happens if you refuse? Exile, she said simply. Loss of title, assets, medical support. My child would be claimed as house property at birth. He stared at her, horrified. They can do that? They believe lineage belongs to the collective. Autonomy is a novelty they tolerate until it's inconvenient. He set his cup down. Then don't go back. She met his eyes. You make it sound simple. Sometimes it is. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I envy your certainty. Don't. It costs more than it's worth. They stood together by the viewport, watching methane clouds drift like slow waves beyond the glass. The colony lights shimmered in their reflection, blending human and Thesari silhouettes into one. You could rebuild this place, he said quietly. Fix it for real. With you. With anyone who knows how to do the job right. I know of one, she said. Her voice carried the faintest warmth then, and something in his chest tightened in response. They stayed like that a while, 2 silhouettes framed against alien stormlight, sharing silence that didn't need to be filled. By the time they left the deck, the breach was sealed, the workers gone. The only sound was the rhythmic thrum of the pumps stabilizing Titan's artificial lungs. When they reached the corridor junction, Saren's wristcom vibrated. A coded alert flashed. House Iller Directive. Immediate recall. Failure to comply constitutes treason. Guardianship transfer in process. She read it once, expression unreadable, then closed the message. What is it? Elijah asked. My family has decided that my child belongs to them, she said. They've invoked genetic claim protocols. If I don't return within 48 hours, they'll void my citizenship across all Thesari systems. Elijah exhaled slowly. That's not a request. That's a threat. She nodded. And a promise. He looked back down the corridor toward the manifold they just saved, toward the workers who would sleep tonight because of them. So what do you do? I win, she said quietly. Without becoming them. He nodded, the faintest spark of admiration flickering in his tired eyes. Then let's start planning. Somewhere above them, the colony sirens finally went silent. The amber glow of Titan's horizon filtered through the glass, catching the frost on their sleeves like starlight. Neither of them moved for a long moment. They both knew the breach was only the first fight, and the next one wouldn't be mechanical. Outside, the methane sea shifted, reflecting the lights of Port Kraken like a mirror turned toward the future. The council chamber gleamed like a crystal lung, transparent walls arching upward into Titan's orange sky, frost light shimmering off every curve. The air smelled of recycled citrus and static electricity. Every major feed in Port Kraken was tuned to the hearing, Apex Minerals Directorate versus Port Kraken Holdings. On the dais stood Saren of House Iller, posture regal despite the strain around her eyes. Behind her, Elijah adjusted the projector cables he'd scrounged from the maintenance bay that morning, pretending not to notice that every camera lens was aimed at her, and by extension, him. Counselor Rourke, an older man with too much jewelry for Titan's gravity, cleared his throat. Let us begin. House Iller's representative has requested to defend the colony's current operating procedures. Director Holt Varn of Apex will present first. Varn stepped forward with the smile of a man who'd already written the ending. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've witnessed these past weeks is sentimentality masquerading as leadership. Port Kraken's efficiency metrics have dropped 8%. Delays, safety audits, non-essential repairs, this is how you lose a contract and, eventually, your colony. He gestured toward Saren, whose face betrayed nothing. Under Lady Iller's management, output slowed. Resources diverted to, his lips twitched, community projects, apprenticeships, oxygen subsidies. Admirable gestures perhaps, but unsustainable. Titan needs precision, not pity. Soft murmurs rippled through the chamber. Saren let them speak. When the room quieted, she inclined her head. You are correct, Director Varn. Precision matters. That's why we measure carefully before cutting lives to fit ledgers. Laughter flickered among the gallery. Quiet but there. Elijah hid a grin behind his tablet. She was learning to hit back in his rhythm. Rourke tapped the podium. Proceed with evidence. Varn's team projected a data chart, a jagged decline of numbers with cheerful red arrows pointing down. See here. Maintenance delays increasing. Output failures correlated directly with Lady Iller's reforms. Even the recent Spine Sea incident, a convenient catastrophe to justify further slowdown. At that, Elijah's chest tightened. Convenient. That word again. Saren turned toward him slightly, just enough to signal. Elijah stepped forward. The camera lights hit his face, washing every oil stain into silver. Name and role, Rourke asked. Elijah Pike. Dock scheduler, formerly maintenance tech, currently contracted safety consultant. Proceed. He placed a single sheet on the projector pad, a scuffed packing slip. The room chuckled. He said, You don't need corporate graphs to see what's wrong here. You just need math anyone can check. He tapped the numbers on the slip. Apex says safety slows productivity. In reality, it saves it. Dock 12 lost 12 hours to a preventable jam last quarter. After Lady Iller's reforms, we lost 0. That's not inefficiency. That's improvement. The only thing dropping is Apex's opportunity to exploit our finds. Rourke leaned forward. And you can prove sabotage? Not yet, but we can trace the pattern. Elijah connected his tablet. The projection changed to a cascading display of sensor logs, green, yellow, red. He zoomed on timestamps. Every so-called delay happened at exactly 0200 local, when no crew scheduled. Someone's been forcing false readings to trigger shutdowns. Varn stepped forward, feigning amusement. A dockhand's conspiracy theory. How charming. Elijah ignored him. See this? He overlaid graphs. Same signature appeared across 5 systems built by Apex subcontractors. And when you strip the encryption, you find an identical checksum trace. Registered to an Apex maintenance AI. Gasps murmured through the gallery. Varn's smile cracked. That proves nothing. Those AI models are public. Saren's voice cut through the air like tempered steel. Then you won't mind providing us the source audit. Varn's silence was its own admission. The counselors exchanged looks. For the first time, the tide shifted. But before victory could settle, a message alert buzzed against Elijah's wrist. He glanced down. Mara's school dome? Oxygen alert level 2. His pulse spiked. Saren saw his face blanch. What is it? She whispered. He turned his wrist to her. The message repeated, color pulsing red. Varn noticed too and smiled, recovering his poise. A minor system glitch, no doubt. Happens when amateurs tamper with infrastructure. Saren's eyes went cold. End session, she said to the council. Now. Rourke frowned. Lady Iller. But she was already walking out, Elijah at her side. Cameras scrambled to follow. The tram to the residential sectors was silent except for the mechanical hum of its rails. Outside, Titan's haze flickered with distant lightning. Elijah's thoughts raced faster than the tram. Mara's dome was supposed to be triple fail-proof. Oxygen dips didn't happen. Unless retaliation, Saren said quietly. He nodded, jaw tight. Apex hit back faster than I thought. Or House Iller did, she added. They warned me to return before dawn. He glanced at her, saw guilt mixing with fury. You think they'd endanger kids just to make a point? I think they'd do anything to prove my independence is reckless. The tram hissed to a stop. They ran. The school dome loomed ahead, glass ribs lit from within. Parents clustered at the gate, voices rising. Technicians rushed between consoles. A security officer barred their way. Systems stable now. False alarm. Elijah grabbed the tablet from his belt, synced wirelessly. Then why are the monitors still oscillating? He pulled up live readings, oxygen partial pressure still dipping in rhythmic pulses. That's not recovery. That's throttling. He pushed past the guard. Saren followed, already contacting internal systems. Inside, students were being herded into safe rooms. The hum of fans stuttered. Mara, Elijah called. She appeared at the end of the hall, pale but calm. Dad, we're fine. They told us to sit on the floor and breathe slow. He knelt, checking her oxygen patch. Safe but borderline. Stay with Mrs. Chun. I'll fix this. You always do, she said softly. Her faith hurt more than fear. He turned and sprinted toward the control hub. The control hub was chaos, technicians yelling, alarms flashing. Saren went straight to the main console, her hands flying over the holographic interface. Pressure regulators are receiving alternating commands, she said. Someone remote linked them to the council server. Elijah swore. So anytime they call a vote, the kids suffocate. She looked up, horror flickering in her steady composure. They wouldn't. They would, he said. Holt wants leverage. Your house wants obedience. Either way, they're using the school. He crouched under the console, yanking open a panel. Manual overrides supposed to be here. Saren crouched beside him, unbothered by the grime. You'll need a manual valve sequence. I can calculate timing. He met her gaze. You trust me that much? She smiled faintly. You're better at this than anyone in my empire. Together they worked in silence. Only the rhythm of their breath and the mechanical hiss between them. She called out numbers, he turned valves. One by one, the lights stabilized. The hum deepened into that slow, steady tone every Titan worker knew. The sound of air coming back. When the reading steadied, he slumped back against the wall. We've got baseline again. Saren exhaled. You just saved my child's future and your own. He looked up. Your child. She nodded. If my house's systems were involved, this will expose them. They'll retaliate. Then let them, he said. Her crest dimmed in thought. You would risk your safety, your daughter's, for mine? He gave a weary smile. Guess I'm consistent. Later, back at the colony core, Holtvarn was waiting. His smirk was gone. In its place, a mask of irritation so thin it barely hid rage. Impressive theatrics, he said. Saving the school. The council will eat it up. Saren stepped forward. This isn't theater. It's evidence. You tampered with oxygen feeds to force a public panic. Prove it. Elijah tossed him a data chip. Already did. Those remote commands came from your department's encrypted line. Only 5 people have that access. You're one of them. Varn's expression didn't change, but his throat worked once. You think the council will believe a dockhand over a director? Saren smiled, small and cold. They'll believe the footage. Varn blinked. What footage? The one your own drones recorded during Spine C, she said. Unedited, as you promised. For the first time, Holtvarn looked uncertain. He turned to Elijah. You could have been something here. A manager. Real pay. Instead, you're throwing your life away for a woman who won't even keep her name. Elijah's answer came quiet, steady. I'm building something better than a name. Varn's sneer returned. Then enjoy being nobodies. He turned on his heel and stalked out. Silence settled after he left. Saren looked at Elijah, eyes reflective in the half-light. He'll come back harder. Let him, Elijah said. We've got truth and duct tape. That's enough. Her laughter was soft but real this time. She reached into her coat, pulled out a thin data card. The council will rule tomorrow. Whatever happens, I want you to have this. He frowned. What is it? Custodianship transfer. If House Iller succeeds in claiming my child, this ensures guardianship passes to you. To keep the baby free. He stared, words failing. Saren, I trust you, she said simply. And I don't trust anyone else. He shook his head. That's a dangerous kind of faith. I've seen what happens when people stop believing in anything. Their gazes held. No words, just the quiet knowledge of everything they stood to lose. Then her comm chimed again, an incoming file encrypted and marked urgent. She opened it. The house's seal glowed across the air, followed by text. Return immediately. Exile terms activated. Saren's voice was almost a whisper. They're stripping my title. Elijah exhaled. Then they've already lost. But beneath the surface confidence, the room felt colder, tighter. Both of them knew that tomorrow's audit could end everything. Contracts, citizenship, even safety for their families. When they finally left the chamber, the colony lights flickered in rhythmic heartbeat pulses. Titan's orange glow reflecting off the domes like a world holding its breath again. The night outside was quiet, but it wasn't peace. It was the pause before something larger broke. Night on Titan was never truly dark, just a deeper amber, a quieter hum beneath the domes. Outside the colony, methane storms pulsed like distant thunder, and every window shimmered with reflected light from the gas seas. Elijah stood in his narrow apartment, the hum of the air scrubber steady against the wall. Mara was asleep, curled under a thermal blanket, her breath even and small. He'd spent most of the evening sitting on the floor beside her bunk, counting the seconds between the air system's clicks, because that rhythm meant safety. Now the message on his wrist slate glowed faintly. From Holtvarn. Priority. Personal. He hesitated before opening it. Pike, I'm a practical man. You've done good work, but you've hitched yourself to a sinking ship. Here's a better deal. Come work for me. Full reinstatement, management position, permanent housing in Upper Dome, full oxygen allowance for you and your daughter. I can even arrange schooling off-world for her, Earth Standard. All you need to do is sign the attached statement confirming that Lady Iller's interference led to the Spine C breach. No court appearance, just your name. Quiet and simple. Think of Mara. The offer hung there like static, humming through his fingertips. He imagined the apartment lights never flickering, Mara never worrying about ration counters. No more patchwork meals or recycled cocoa. A normal life or as close as Titan ever allowed. All he had to do was lie. He closed the message. The screen dimmed, leaving his reflection ghosted against it. Tired eyes, rough stubble. A man who fixed leaks and kept his promises. He looked at Mara again and muttered to himself, "She deserves better than comfort built on rot." The next morning, he found Saren in the administrative wing, her posture a study in exhaustion and control. The glow beneath her skin was dimmer, crest flickering irregularly, the way it did when her blood chemistry was strained. She'd been awake all night. The room smelled faintly of iron and ozone. "You got the same offer I did," she said without preamble. Elijah nodded. "You turn him down?" "Of course." Her tone was sharp, but not at him, at the fact that he even had to ask. Holt's leverage is desperation. He assumes everyone can be bought, given the right weakness. "He's not wrong," Elijah said quietly. "He just misjudged mine." Saren looked at him, something like weary gratitude softening her voice. "What's yours?" He gave a tired shrug. "The truth. Once you sell that, you can't fix anything again." They sat in silence for a while, the air thick with unspoken fatigue. Finally, she stood. "The audit releases tomorrow. Apex will try another strike tonight, before the council locks the grid data. If they can trigger one more incident, it'll invalidate everything we proved. You know where they'll hit?" She turned the console toward him. A schematic of Port Kraken blinked, certain sectors highlighted in red. Oxygen distribution for the residential levels. They'll stage a malfunction that looks like my reform protocols caused a cascade failure. Half the colony will panic. He rubbed his jaw. "We can intercept the override manually, but it means cutting into the backbone network." "I can handle the authorization side," she said. "But the access hatch is in the old service tunnels below Dock 3. No cameras, no sensors, half flooded with coolant. Dangerous." He gave a humorless smile. "Then it's perfect." Before they left, he sent Mara a short message. "Stay at Mrs. Chen's tonight. I'll explain later. Don't worry. Love you." He deleted the part where he almost wrote, "just in case." The service tunnels were colder than the rest of the colony. Narrow corridors lined with pipes that exhaled mist like tired lungs. Their breath fogged in the chill. Saren's cloak brushed the walls, leaving faint luminescent streaks in its wake. "Not exactly a throne room," Elijah said, voice echoing off metal. "I've had enough of those," she answered. They reached the junction panel, half buried under frost. Elijah knelt, running his gloved fingers over the controls. "They've rigged a pulse relay. Trip this and it sends a cascade through every oxygen node tied to your reforms. You'll be branded a saboteur." Saren crouched beside him. "Can you disarm it?" He nodded slowly. "Maybe, but whoever said it knew their work. If I miss even one wire, then you won't," she said. Her voice was low but certain. He shot her a sideways glance. "You trust me that much?" She smiled faintly. "I trusted you with my life in Spine C. And my child's future." That stopped him cold. "About that, why me?" "Because you do what's right without calculating return," she said. "Because you have the steadiness my house pretends to value and doesn't understand. Because you remind me what power is supposed to serve." He didn't look up, afraid she'd see the heat behind his eyes. "You make it sound noble. It's not. It's just habit." "Habits are the bones of character," she said. "They hold everything upright." He laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "You always talk like someone who studied poetry at a machine shop." "Close. I studied diplomacy. The same thing with worse consequences." Her dry wit pulled a short smile from him. Then the gauge beeped. "Okay, moment of truth. On my mark, cut the feed from Terminal 4. Ready?" She nodded, her hand steady over the control pad. 3, 2, now." He twisted the connector. Sparks jumped, scattering blue light across the tunnel. For a heartbeat, the air went silent. The hum of pumps, the distant ventilation. Everything held its breath. Then the circuits realigned, and the gauge flickered back to green. He exhaled slowly. "It's done. Manual override restored. Holt can't trigger the cascade remotely now." Saren pressed her hand to her chest, relief visible even through exhaustion. You've saved us again. He stood, flexing cramped knees. No, we saved us. Don't start making me a legend. I'm just a guy who hates broken things. Then maybe you were born in the right universe, she murmured. They started the climb back up. Halfway through the tunnel, she stumbled slightly, catching herself against the wall. You okay? He asked, reaching out. Just a contraction, she said through clenched teeth. It passes. Contraction? Saren, you shouldn't even be walking. She gave him a look both amused and fierce. You think I can hide in a medpod while my enemies dismantle everything I've built? You should at least sit for a second. He guided her to a ledge where coolant pipes met. The warmth from the lines painted her face in soft gold. For a moment they just breathed together, their shoulders brushing. Outside, the world was silent except for the deep heartbeat of machinery. You ever regret it? She asked quietly. What? Fixing leaks? No. Choosing duty over comfort. He thought for a long time. Every day. But then I look at Mara, and I remember why. Comfort doesn't teach her how to live right. Seeing someone try does. Saren nodded, her expression unreadable. When I was little, my house tutor used to tell me that dignity was inherited. I believed him, until I saw who held the inheritance. You built your own version, he said. Better one. Maybe. Or maybe I just found the right company. Their eyes met, and for once neither of them looked away. The air felt different, lighter, fragile as frost. Then the colony-wide intercom crackled. All personnel prepare for audit review. Apex delegation inbound. Saren stood, straightening her cloak. It's time. Elijah tightened his gloves. You ready to be exiled? She smiled faintly. Ready to be free. The council hall looked different this time. No crystal shine, no pomp. Just exhausted people and flickering lights. Holt Varn stood at the center, immaculate as ever, though sweat beaded at his temples. Counselors, he began, voice sharp. I submit new evidence of negligence. An unauthorized modification of the oxygen network by Lady Iller and her accomplice, Elijah Pike. Saren raised an eyebrow. You mean the modification that prevented your cascade from killing 300 civilians? Varn froze. What are you implying? Elijah stepped forward, placing a small cube on the table. This is a log of every command from your terminal last night, including the one labeled Stage 2 _ failsafe. Cute name, by the way. Rourke picked up the cube, scanning it. His expression hardened. Director Varn, explain this. Varn sputtered, searching for words, but none came. The silence stretched until even the drones turned their cameras toward him. Saren's voice was soft but carried through the hall. Power without conscience destroys everything it touches. This colony deserves better. Rourke leaned back. Agreed. He turned to Saren. And you, Lady Iller, House Iller has issued a recall order, citing breach of lineage contract. I know, she said. I decline. Decline. I renounce House Iller and claim Titan citizenship under open charter. Effective immediately. The room went still. Varn finally found his voice, snarling. You'd trade nobility for mud and ice? Saren smiled faintly. For the first honest ground I've ever stood on. The council erupted, some in shock, some in approval. Elijah just stood there, watching her, admiration a quiet heat in his chest. Later, after the hearing dissolved into a flurry of arguments and headlines, they found themselves alone in the observation deck overlooking the methane sea. The storms had cleared for once, revealing Saturn's pale rings hanging above the horizon like the memory of an old promise. You did it, Elijah said. We did it, she corrected. And now everything changes. What happens next? She exhaled slowly. We rebuild. Properly this time. Shared ownership, safety as a public trust, not a cost center. The council agreed to the charter. He smiled. And your house. They'll rage. Then they'll fade. Empires always do. He watched her for a moment, the reflection of the ring light painting her skin in gold. You ever think about starting over somewhere else? She looked back at him, steady, unflinching. Only if you're there. For the first time, he didn't deflect. He just nodded, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. Deal. The calm light on his wrist flickered, Mara's message. Saw the news. Proud of you, Dad. He showed it to Saren. She smiled. Tell her the colony's safe now, she said. He typed back, safe for now. Love you. Outside, the storm began again. Faint drifts of amber mist sweeping over the domes. But inside the observation deck, the air was still warm, filled with something steadier than luck. Earned peace. The night wasn't quiet. It hummed with new beginnings.